Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Byword Show. Today is the day. I'm so glad you're here. And today we've got Chelsea Reidland with us. You may remember her from episode 48 of the Byword Show. And she's back today because we are discussing how to talk to your kids about diversity, inclusion, and loving people who are different from you. So, Chelsea, thank you so much for being here. I just love you and Mark and everything you guys are doing with Hope Local. And I've just seen you guys model this idea of just loving people who are different and having this attitude of welcome. So I can't wait to get into this conversation. And for those who haven't heard all of the Reidland story about fostering and adopting and working in child welfare, definitely go back to episode 48 and you'll get the full story. But today, let's dive into this topic of how to talk to our kids. So you guys have experienced and witnessed a lot during the years, and your kids have been with you, your biological kids have been with you the whole time. So to start off today's conversation, would you just share a little bit about your experience and how you've kind of talked to your kids and helped them navigate things like diversity and inclusion along the way?
Yeah, definitely. So you can go back to hear the whole story, but long story short is we had three biological boys from my husband and I, and then the Lord asked us to expand our family through adoption. We thought that we would get like a cute little 2-year-old girl that was going to fit nice and neat into the birth order, and that we were going to have this like beautiful rainbow family, and that is probably the opposite of what our family looks like. And so we have adopted three teenagers from foster care. And oddly enough, they all look very similar to us on the outside, but on the inside, totally different backgrounds. And then again, we're like, okay, surely we're done. We adopted teenagers. Like, please, can we just like check the Christian box and like move on with our lives? And we were having a big issue with foster care crisis, just shortage of foster parents, specifically after COVID. A lot of the facilities were being shut down. And so they asked us if we would become like basically a temporary emergency shelter for kids that were getting kicked out or discharged from the juvenile detention center, from psych hospitals, things like that. And we said, yes, absolutely. Because these kids were going and sleeping on office floors at CPS offices or in hotels. And so they started bringing them to our house, typically just one or two at a time because the behaviors were pretty extreme. And again, some of them looked like us, some of them did not. Different cultures, different backgrounds, different genders. A lot of genders were kind of all over the place. That was probably when my kids were exposed the most to just that side of the world. And so that really has just become a lifestyle of welcome, a lifestyle of this is a house of ministry, this is a house of love. Yeah, so they've been along for the whole journey. My youngest was 3, and then our other boys were 6 and 9 when we started this crazy adventure called foster care and adoption.
That is wild. And I've heard you tell me stories about, like a delivery person coming to your house and then, like talking for a bit. And then your kids are like, hey, coming in for dinner. And they're like, oh no, like we were just here to drop something off, and it's like, it's just become almost normal to them, to like welcome people in as well. And I think that's really amazing because, for those who don't know my background, it was me and my brother growing up. I have a brother who's 2 years younger than me. And when I was 13, my parents decided to adopt my sister, who was 4.5, from Ethiopia. And so for us, that was the first time we had a little bit of culture shock and realizing, oh my goodness, like there are people in this world whose cultures are totally different, who operate totally different. Their background is totally different. And it really opened my eyes for the first time. So I'm sure for your kids as well, having other kids into your home, adopting and then having temporary foster care as well. How has that been like for them? Like, how do they navigate, just meeting people from all different walks of life and welcoming them into your home and your family?
Yeah, they're amazing. They're the best at it. They should be the ones teaching any kind of classes on how to love better and be an includer. I was talking with them actually today preparing for this, and I just was asking them different questions, and they were like, that's just what we do. And I think that's it. I don't think we've rarely sat them down and had like these big discussions of like how to do this. When someone gets here that looks different than you say this, you don't say this, you hug them, you don't hug them. That's pretty rare. Our big family decisions have been if really just do we want to make this person a part of our family forever? So I think it's just consistency and a lifestyle of this is who we are as believers. This is a core value as a family. We have 6 core values that we really instill into our kids. And we say it all the time to them. And one of them my son brought up today, he's 12 now, is we honor up, down, and all around. He said, I don't know, you've said that like a bazillion times. And some of the kids in our house are younger than me, some are the same age, and some are older. And our like Reidland motto is that we love God and love people. And so that's just who we want to be as believers. So definitely I've had some questions. We had one little one that came in and he had just had his neck brace taken off, and it was really hard to hold, and it was because his abuse was so severe that his ribs had been broken and his neck was fractured, and
Mm.
it was really hard to feed him. It was hard to hold him. He cried more than a typical baby in our house. And so just really sharing with them like what sin does in our lives when we're not walking with the Lord. And not only does this baby need love, but we need to pray for his parents and the people that will be saying yes to forever. Because for a human to hurt an infant that severely, something's wrong. And
Mm.
so instead of just going in of like, oh my gosh, these people are terrible, we just say, we need to pray for them. We need to pray for the Lord to intervene in their life and to teach them how to love better. And so we've just, I think, naturally been able to have a lot of conversations like that as kids come in with maybe bruises or maybe broken bones, or we had one that was the same age as my son, and she was this cute little African American girl, and they were the same age, and I would like mix them up, Joel and this little girl. We'll call her B. That's like, B or Joel. And I'd be like, oh my gosh, y'all look so much alike. And they would just thought it was the funniest thing ever. And so I hope in doing that is not to make our children colorblind, but just to see that like we're just kids. We're just children of the Lord. They're just kids. They both like Play-Doh. They both like art, and just trying to like normalize that we all look different, but we all just want to have fun and belong and be loved.
That's so good, Chelsea. I think the huge thing that sticks out to me is you just saying, I don't know. It wasn't like we had this sit down conversation where we taught our kids how to welcome people into our home, how to love people that are different from them. It's like you guys decided from the beginning, these are the values for our family and our home. It's to love people, it's to honor people, regardless of their background, regardless of how they look, what their story is, how long they're with us, because I think a lot of moms, and I've felt this pressure sometimes, especially thinking about my own kids getting older and going to school and interacting with people who are different from them, believe different things, look different. It can sometimes feel scary not feeling like, oh, I don't have the answers. I don't know how to explain this to my kids. What do I say? How do I teach them to treat people well? But really it's what you model for them. And so I hope for the moms that are listening, that is a sigh of relief, because it's not so much like, okay, we need to sit down and have all these family meetings to teach our kids what to say and what not to say and how to act around people who are different. It's really just across the board, this is the standard. In our home, we love people, we honor people no matter what, like period, that's it. And I think that is really, really powerful. And I think it just takes a lot of the pressure off, like I said, for moms who maybe feel worried about their kids getting older and going to school and interacting with people their age who, come from very different homes, different families, have questions about faith and gender and identity and some of those things. Like when your kids come to you with those kind of questions, how do you help them kind of wrestle through that and then come back to we love and we honor?
Yeah, a lot of times I ask them questions back because I
Mm.
want to see like what are they really asking. You've probably heard that thing of a little kid asking their mom, like, where do babies come from? And the mom goes into the whole story, and he's like, no, like, are they from Texas or Oklahoma? Like, they're like, oh, yeah. So, I mean, just trying to narrow down, like, what are they actually asking? And then trying to just address that at age appropriate level instead of trying to like share everything about it and just having like honest conversations. I mean, our kids observe more than what we realize. And they can tell if we're nervous, if we're feeling apprehensive, if we're closed off. Being a safe place, I guess, is what I would really say, so that your kids can ask those questions and not making them feel like they're too young to understand. So, I mean, we've had really a lot of honest conversations with our kids. So, I don't remember what the update was with one of our sons that we adopted on the last episode, but he struggles with addiction and he's homeless on and off. And the last time that he came over, his veins were pretty infected. He had switched over to using needles, unfortunately. And he smells really bad because he's homeless and because drugs smell really bad, specifically meth. That's something you really don't want your kids to see, right?
Right.
You worry about them going to public school and being exposed to drugs and people that cuss and are disrespectful. And then you have that now this is one of your kids. And so we're committed to our yeses to him forever. And so it's very obvious that he looks different than how he has looked previously. And so just having this space to say, yeah, his skin looked really bad and he's got some sores and he's just making some really poor life choices right now, but we love him and we believe that the Lord has good plans for him. And usually just bringing it back to prayer, let's pray for him. His story is not over. And so that's a little different than just having, someone that maybe looks different than you. Like just because someone looks different, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to pray for them. That's not what I'm saying at all. But sometimes I think where we maybe come in more as a expertise, as you called it in the email, which is totally not a thing, is people that make different choices than us. So yes, all the colors of the rainbow have been in our house, but I think more conversations, more questions have come of kids that make different choices or come from a different background than our family. So yeah, being safe for them to be able to ask questions, not making them feel like, oh, you're too young to understand this, and seeing like, what are they really asking? I think it would probably be what I would say.
That's really good. And I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying is our kids are observing, and then we get to model for them how to be a safe space, whether it's having those conversations, safe space, or maybe they make a friend at school or they interact with someone at school who's different, and then we can teach them kind of like you mentioned as well. Just because someone's different, that doesn't mean that they're bad. It doesn't mean that they're wrong. It doesn't mean that they're a problem we need to fix. It means that they're a person that we have an opportunity to love, to pray for, to be there, in whatever capacity, whether it's, having a child in your home through foster care. Maybe it's someone that your kid is working with at their high school job, like you just never know the capacity that that our kids will interact with people who are different from them. But I think the things you're saying, like just coming back to, do they have a safe place to land? Like, can they come to us as parents and ask their questions,
Mhm.
and we can like lead them back to truth, guide them back to truth. I feel like that will make such a huge impact, because for me, a lot of the fears that I have of my kids being influenced by people who are different, maybe the things that we think of being different as wrong, or, like, oh, I'm scared of my kids when they get older to be exposed to drugs and sex and drinking and partying and all of that. But how cool is it that if we start now from a young age, training our kids, or just allowing them to know they can come to us with their questions. And I love that you said as well, not treating it like, oh, you're too young to talk about that. Like, there's a way that we can talk about it with them that's age appropriate without getting into all of the details that aren't necessary or helpful for a kid that's really little. But as they grow, being able to continue those conversations, it's really cool. And one of the questions that I was going to ask you about is also how your faith impacts those conversations. And I feel like you've kind of already mentioned, bringing it back to prayer, bringing it back to truth when you talk to them. And I think that's really cool. And I'd love to know, have there been moments where you have seen your kids, like maybe you've had a conversation with them and then you've seen an interaction that they've had with someone who is different, where you've just been like, that just fills your heart, like to see your kids modeling out what's been, set for them as an example in your home?
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many. I think there has just been like a grace that the Lord has given on our kids, really all six of them, to just love well. I don't think I can really take any credit for that. But just when I see them say, "Hey, come do this with me," or "Let me show you how to do this," and so one of my sons, he's 15 now, he loves skateboarding. They actually just got back from the skate park, and there's all sorts of backgrounds at the skate park, by the way. So I am thankful that he is familiar with different lifestyles and different choices, so that I don't know. I'm just not like, oh, this is the first time he's going to encounter the smell of weed. Not that we like smoke weed in our house, clarify. Just our son sometimes smells of weed, which we quickly say, go take a shower. Our one that struggles with addiction. So I don't know. He's like all of the kids, he's been like, hey, let me show you how to skateboard. And to do that, like he's holding their hands. Like it's not one of those things like, do this, do that. Like he helps them stand on the board, and then he holds both of their hands to help them balance. And he's just walking with them down the road and as they're on the skateboard. And that probably sounds like so small, but when I'm sitting outside just watching them all interact together, I'm like, that is so kind to like invite them into something, because like he buys his own skateboards and they're expensive and they break, and to into his hobby, like his kind of escape place, and then not just telling them how to do it, but holding their hands, catching them if they fall, encouraging them, I've got you, I'm right here. I think that is so kind. And yeah, my youngest, I think I shared that story. We had like a delivery person or like a solar sales person, and it's just it's just normal to them. So I just got a text. I had to like silence my phone. We're getting a baby tomorrow at 1:30. We try to keep her on Tuesdays. It's for a mom that has aged out of care, and just to really support. The goal is not adoption, y'all. It's for families to stay together. So that's a whole side note that I could preach about. She's a good mom. She just needs some support. And so if I can remember, I'll tell my kids when we get off this podcast, but I'll probably forget because we'll just start watching a movie or something. And when the baby shows up tomorrow, they're going to be like, oh, do you need me to go get a diaper for you? Or, they're just sweet. And don't let me paint them as angels. When the babies cry, they go upstairs and put their headphones on and play video games. They're not like, I'm always curious when I have friends that have little girls that take in babies. It's like the sweetest. That's not what's going on here with all my boys, but they are helpful. But they're not holding them. They're not feeding them. They're definitely not changing their diaper. So they have their boundaries. But yeah, they're just sweet. They're just sweet boys. I know I sound like a obnoxious mom right now. Um, but they're just kind and gentle. And then there is times that they have said, we really need a break. We don't want anyone to come over right now. And can we take a break? We say, yeah, absolutely. So we are currently not licensed, which is a brand new season for us. And we're just wrapping around these 3 birth moms the Lord has brought into our lives and trying to stay available for them. And so that's a different season for us. And we'll just continue to be obedient to whatever the Lord asks us to do.
That's really cool. Just seeing how it really is a whole family effort, loving people and making space for people. It's not something you're forcing on your kids. It's something you've invited them into to be a part of the conversation. I think that is just really cool and really special. I would love to know, If you have any advice for moms who may be struggling with that fear of the initial exposure for their kids, regardless of if it's fostering or just their kids going to school for the first time or getting older, like junior high, high school, what would you say to those moms who are maybe a little worried and their kids maybe haven't been exposed to as diverse of environments yet?
Yeah, it's scary. Being a mom is scary. Like, it is so scary. Um, and what's interesting is we just started homeschooling. So it's like the opposite. This is like the segue, but I was like, my kids aren't going to be around as much, people. And it was like the opposite fear, So when I actually wanted to read this Bible verse, my first encouragement is like to get your kids around different people. So, don't let them experience those things for the first time without you. Like get them around people that are different. So one of the kind of I feel like life verses the Lord gave me when I accepted the Lord pretty young was in Matthew 25, and we've all heard it. It's like caring for the least of these. But it's in scripture of like, I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me a drink. I was a stranger and you invited me into your home. I was naked and you gave me clothing. I was sick and you cared for me. I was in prison and you visited for me. A lot of these are commands that the Lord is asking us to do. So find someone that's hungry as a family and go feed them. Find someone that's thirsty and give them a drink. Find someone that doesn't have clothes and give them clothes. Find someone in prison and go visit them. Do the scary things and do them with your children so that you can have those conversations. I can tell you, I would be much more worried for my kids to go to high school or the skate park or college. I have one that just graduated. If we hadn't done these things together, if he was going to see homelessness or addiction or abuse for the first time on his own, I would be scared. It was scary enough doing it together with him. And so, I mean, that would kind of be my encouragement is to find those people, to find the least of these in your community. And I don't mean like give money to the homeless guy on the corner. Please actually don't do that. As a mom who has a son who's homeless on and off due to addiction, please do not give them money. But find like places in your local community that have a good reputation, that are doing it the right way, and just partner with them as a family and ask the Lord, who's in my community? Who are the least of these? Who can I serve? And just do it together. Again, just a safe place for your kids to ask questions. Maybe they come home and someone is talking different than them. Someone is looks different than them, eats different than them. We had one kid that came in and constantly got on to me for cooking like a white person. And I'm like, I am a white person. And he was like, you do no flavor. And I'm like, I don't know what that means, And so, I mean, I just like took him to the store and he got seasonings that I've never cooked before. And we just let him cook with me and we started eating things that we've never eaten before. And even like games like Uno. He'd be like, you play this the white person way. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Like, this is how my mom, actually, this is how the rules teach you to play Uno. And so we learned like different ways to play games that we had played before. And one way wasn't right and one way wasn't wrong. We actually got some really good recipes out of the deal. So just, I think like getting rid of besides things that line up with biblical truth, getting away from our way is the right way. The middle class Americans, typically, when you start to see the different parts of the world, we're not always doing things the right way. And so we've been able to see that. I've shared a little bit. I partner with a mom. She aged out of foster care. She has several children now. She's young, very young to have several children. She parents different than me, but some of her ways are not wrong. They're just different. And it's helped me learn just empathy. She was raised different than me, and we don't always know the right way. We're not always right. So just to be humble.
That's so good and so true. It is like we are so used to doing things a certain way that it's can be very uncomfortable when we come in contact with people who are different, opposite, have different opinions, believe different things. It can be really, really vulnerable, to put yourself in a position where you are, trying to even form a relationship with someone who's different or have a conversation with someone who's different and finding middle ground. But something as simple as playing Uno or cooking, like finding ways to appreciate the differences and to love each other, that's just a really sweet way to live. Like when we get to see the beauty in people who are different than us instead of like having walls up and never wanting to interact with people who are different from us. I feel like that is just not healthy at all. And like that doesn't really serve our children as much as we want to protect them from the things of the world. Like at the end of the day, like if we shelter them from everyone who's different and every opinion that's not the same as what we do in our home, like we're not really setting them up for real life and the real world when they will be rubbing shoulders daily with people who are different from them. So I think it's really cool that you guys started, you said what your youngest son was 3 when you started your process of fostering, adopting, and now your kids are older, much older, and just hearing the way that they interact with people, how sweet it is as a mom to be able to see that. And it's just something that you guys have modeled and set the standard for in your home. I think that is really, really cool and so encouraging as another mom to hear like, okay, it doesn't have to be this huge project to teach my kids to interact with people who are different or love people who are different. It's just something that starts with what's normal at home.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are like sit down lessons or devotionals or something that we could have done with them to help them out. But honestly, I just didn't have time. Like we're in survival mode most of the time. And
That's so real.
um yeah, so I mean I've definitely like have bought books and devotionals in plans of doing those, and they just haven't ever happened. So somehow we're still making it.
Which is also very encouraging to hear. Like, again, for all the moms who are listening, it doesn't have this thing where you go to trainings and you read all the books. It can just be as simple as modeling it and teaching your kids the values. I've heard you guys talk about your core values as a family, and I think that's really cool way to just across the board say, okay, we're going to honor people. At the end of the day, no matter what situation we're in, we're going to honor people. So I love all of this. So thank you so much for your time, Chelsea. Is there any final encouragement you want to give to the moms who are listening before we go?
That's a great question. Um, yeah, I mean, I think they're watching you. So if you're nervous, they're going to be nervous. If you're closed off, they're going to be closed off. So just, I feel like the closer we get to the Lord, the closer we get to God's heart, the more we're going to see people through His eyes. And that's what we want. That's my prayer is, Lord, let me see people the way that you see them, and let my children see people the way that you see them. Not the way I see them, but the way the Lord sees them. And so I think that would be my encouragement for the moms is just to continue to spend time in the Word, continue to spend time in the Lord's presence, and ask, help my family to see people the way that you see them. And I just don't think you can go wrong with that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. That's so good. Chelsea, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time and your willingness to just share your story, your family story, and what's helped you guys. I know it's probably going to be so encouraging for the other moms who are listening who have been worried about that. I mean, I'm raising my hand. This is something that I've worried about. And thank you just for
Yeah,
simplifying
it's
that.
scary. Yeah, it's scary.
But so worth it though. Like just hearing the way you talk about
So
your
worth
kids
it.
and the way they interact with other people now, like that's what I want for my kids too. So being willing to get out of our comfort zones, to love people who are different than us, it's worth it, y'all.
Yep, it's worth it.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to tune in to another episode of the Byword Show. I love having you here, and your support truly means the world to me. If you enjoyed this episode, would you leave a quick review? It really helps our community grow and reach more women. If you want more, you can shop my books, Waking Up, Living Open, and Love Is on Amazon, and be sure to sign up for my email list so you always get the latest news. I can't wait to chat again soon, but in the meantime, be sure to come hang out with me on social media, and remember, I'm cheering you on.